Well, good morning, and welcome to day 29 of our study. We're in Mark's Gospel, chapter 8, verses 1 through 10. I want to tell you my favorite joke. Joke about the two old men who were sitting around talking about how difficult it was to keep getting older, and one of them said, "The biggest problem I have is my memory." The other one said, "Oh, well, I've got the answer for that. I'm taking a new medication now, and it has improved my memory tremendously. I'm no longer forgetting anything. It's great." And his friend said, "Well, what's the name of it?" "Oh, it's it's hang on." He said, "Hey, what's that name of that flower? It's red. It's got a long stem. It's got thorns. What's the name of it?" His friend said, "You mean a rose?" He goes, "Yeah, a rose. Hang on. Hey, Rose, honey, what's the name of that medicine I'm taking?" All right. You ever have memory issues? That's almost what this passage is about. We're going to look at a miracle today that Jesus did, and you're going to think, didn't he just do this? Yeah, he did. He did. Remember a few days ago we talked about Jesus feeding 5,000 people. Today he feeds 4,000 people. There wasn't that long a period between these miracles, and yet the apostles all act like they had completely forgotten what he had done before. Let's take a look at the passage here. We are in Mark's Gospel, again, chapter 8, verses 1 through 10. Let's read the first 5 verses. During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, "I have compassion for these people. They've already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way, because some of them have come a long distance." His disciples answered, "But where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them?" "How many loaves do you have?" Jesus asked. "7." Jesus is teaching a large crowd, just like the last time. Once again, the people need to be fed. Once again, there's no food to give them. You think the apostles at this point would go, "Hey, Jesus, remember you took that one kid's lunch and fed all those people? Do it again. Do it again." But that never seems to occur to them. It doesn't dawn on them. Jesus has just done this miracle. Are they really that forgetful? I'm one of those people that when I meet somebody new, and this is why I have at Crossroads here, we've got everybody wearing name tags because I am so bad at remembering people's names. Some people are good at remembering names, some people are good at remembering faces. I'm able to forget both almost instantly. Yeah, so it was either go into ministry or be a detective with this kind of memory. This is what the apostles are like. Jesus had just done this identical miracle. Why were they forgetting? Why were they thinking, "Lord, we have nothing to feed these people. What are we going to do?" Look what Jesus does. Verse 6, he told them to sit down on the ground. When he had taken the 7 loaves and given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people, and they did so. They had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them and told the disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. About 4,000 were present. After he had sent them away, he got into the boat with his disciple and went to the region of Dalmanutha. They just did this. The menu was identical, fish and loaves. They had just done this. So why were the disciples forgetting what Jesus had just done? They were acting like they'd never seen this before. Well, here's the thing, and it's just a theory I have. I could be wrong, but I think the apostles did remember. I don't think they forgot. I think they knew Jesus could feed these people, but here's the thing, I don't think they wanted Jesus to feed the people this time. Why? Well, to find out why, we've got to look at some of the differences between the first miracle, the feeding of the 5,000, and this one, feeding of the 4,000. Now, the most obvious is, well, there's 1,000 fewer people this time. All right. But that's not the big difference. There's other differences, like the last time they picked up 10 baskets, this time they only picked up 7, but these were different kinds of baskets. It's a different word in the Greek for these baskets. These were larger baskets. That's still not the big difference. What's the big difference between the last miracle and this miracle? It's where he was. When Jesus fed the 5,000 people, it was in Israel. He was in Jewish territory. Now guess where he is? He's in Gentile country. And not only is he in Gentile country, but these are Gentiles that are listening to him. All right? And the disciples don't want Jesus to do this miracle. But why? Not just that they're Gentiles, but what would they care if Gentiles had some dinner? Well, here's the thing. We know from John's gospel that when Jesus did the first miracle, the feeding of the 5,000, the people, the Jews that he fed, responded to it by understanding we are looking for the Messiah. And one of the things that the rabbis teach us about the coming of the Messiah is he will provide for us like Moses provided. Moses provided manna from heaven. Well, God did, but it was under Moses' leadership. And now this new Messiah is providing this miraculous bread. Ah. So they are taking it as a sign that Jesus blessing them is just like Moses, the leader of the Jews, blessing the children of Israel. So in their minds, this bread symbolizes something, here's the important part, that is God's gift to the Jews, just the Jews. And now if Jesus feeds these Gentiles, well, that doesn't fit in to how we understand things, Jesus. And so it would be best if you would just send the people home. So now you see why the disciples are hesitant when Jesus starts talking about feeding them. It's just not right. You're taking what's supposed to be for us. You're taking God's blessing to the Jewish people and you're giving it to Gentiles. You see, that's stepping over boundaries, Jesus. By feeding the Gentile crowd, Jesus is stepping over boundaries that the apostles are not willing to step over. What this really is about is that fact right there, that Jesus is willing to cross boundaries, even boundaries that others are not comfortable with. This is important today because there's always some boundary that gets put up around what we should do and who we should share God's blessings with. And it's usually Christians who are putting up those boundaries. There's always some reason not to extend kindness to those people. They're sinners, they're non-believers, they've made these choices for themselves, so on and so forth. There's always a reason. But let me tell you what those boundaries really are. Those boundaries are really just the rationalizations we have for not wanting to do anything, not wanting to help. Years ago, I was on a mission trip, like our kids go on now down to Mexico, same trip, and we had stopped for gas somewhere in California. And the kids were talking to the guy who was pumping gas and or that was taking our money. This wasn't Oregon. We pump our own gas in California. And anyways, this guy was asking where y'all headed, and the kids said we're going down to Mexico. We're going to build homes. And believe it or not, this clerk got not really angry, but a little indignant. And he started lecturing them and saying, you shouldn't be going to Mexico to build homes. There are people in this country who need homes. You should be helping our people first. And I remember getting very, very annoyed with this guy because here are these kids giving up their spring break, raising money, could go down and build homes in Mexico. That's a good thing. No, let me take it back. That's a fantastic thing. And this guy, all he could do was come up with reasons why they were wrong to do it. You should have been doing this. And I realize now exactly what he was doing. He was doing nothing. He wasn't going down to Mexico to build homes. All right, that's fine. But don't stop people who are. You see, he was using the boundaries that he was putting up, saying you shouldn't be doing this, simply as a rationalization to justify the fact that he was doing nothing. Don't do that. Don't do that. In truth, in this passage here, the Jews just didn't like the Gentiles. And their excuse was, well, God didn't choose them, so why should they get any blessings whatsoever? So it was wrong to help the Gentiles. It was wrong to include them. It was wrong to think of them of someday becoming God's people. Fortunately, Jesus ignored all that. Jesus crossed the boundary. He gave them the bread of heaven. And with that bread, make no mistake, was the message, I can be your Messiah too. That's the thing about Jesus. That's the thing about the gospel. They go places we are not comfortable with. They go to people we don't approve. They go to people that don't think like us, look like us, act like us, believe like us, but they are God's children, and God takes the gospel there, whether we like it or not. So here's our choice: change our mind and start crossing those boundaries with God, or be quiet and get out of the way. Either one's fine, but take those boundaries down. All right, there you go for today. Have a great rest of your, what is today? Thursday. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember to stay positive.